Hey everyone, Suntide here, and did you know that not all cat skills in Monster Hunter Rise are equal? Like, I don't mean like which ones are good, which ones are not. I mean that they aren't all equally likely to appear on each cat. This is something we just found out like the other day. So a good friend of mine, Kieran, just made a video about that. I'll link it somewhere right now. But it's really interesting to see how he actually did this stuff. But what I'm going to do in this video is I'm going to talk about what this means. So what sort of skills do we actually want? And how does this affect the skills, the cats and the dogs that we actually want? How likely are they to appear? Basically, we can actually see the effects like really easily right now if we try and look for it. Like of these 7 cats that have been randomly generated, you can see that 1, 2, 3, and 4 cats of these 7 cats have health up small. So over half of these cats have health up small. Whereas if we take a rarer skill like Medic's Touch, we have I think just 1 of these cats have Medic's Touch. Yep, this one has it, but no other cat has Medic's Touch. Now this is anecdotal, but basically different skills have different probabilities of appearing in this game. And so when we really want skills that are good, they actually turn out to be a bit rarer than they usually seem to be. So that's what we're going to talk about in this video. So basically, if you don't know by now, so body skills are the passive bonuses that are used by Palicos and Palamutes. So you can have these 8 skills which you see right now. So this one has health up, negate poison, negate tremor, blah 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 blah, until it has health up small. Basically there are 8 skills for each cat, and it learns one at a unique level depending on the skill. So health up large is always learned at level 10 if it has it unlocked. Negate poison is always at level 5, but these can be any level for the skills. And this is the case for both the cats and the dogs, or the Palicos and the Palamutes. Like you can see that the Palamutes also have 8 skills, which are randomly generated. You can also have up to 5 points worth of skills equipped. So you can see that you have skill memory, we have 5 points of skill memory, and right now you can see that Medic's Touch right now has 3 points, well it costs 3 points. Omni Resistance costs 1 point. Basically this means we can use up to 5 skills if we really want to, but usually we're going to use 2 or 3, 2 or 3 good ones that use a lot of points, because they're going to be worth more than the ones that are worth fewer points, even if you can use more skills. The second thing you can have in bodies is, before I talk about the body's moves, let's focus on the body skills. Basically there are some really good ones. I think the best one for offense and for support is the one called Status Attack, which uses 3 points. So you can see that here, so this cat would have Status Attack up. Basically Status Attack means that statuses are more likely to happen when your body attacks. And that's really good because if you have a sleep weapon on your cat or your dog, that means that the monster might go to sleep more often or go to sleep faster, which is really good, especially if you use a weapon that has very high damaging attacks, like the Greatsword or the Longsword. There are also other ones that are pretty good as well. Knockout King can be pretty good. It can give you more knockouts, especially on the Palamute. Range attack up can be good for more damage, and so can attack up. For defense, I think the best one is Artful Dodger. So Artful Dodger makes it more likely for your cat or your dog to not take damage from another monster. I don't quite know the chances, but it seems pretty good. Another good one is Earplugs. So what Earplugs does is it makes sure the monster doesn't flinch from roars. Depending on your skill with the game, this can be really good, because if you're roared and your cat or your dog isn't roared, they can come up to you and they can knock you out of the stagger from the roar, which could help you get back in the fight faster or to dodge an enemy's attack. It's quite nice. Negate Wind Pressure is similar. It acts the same way, just with the flapping of the monster's wings, but those are less frequent than roars, so Earplugs is a bit better. Just for survivability and bulk, Omni Resistance is quite nice. So it just increases all elemental resistance, which is quite nice for giving them bulk. Oddly enough, this one sounds like it'd be good for a lot of defensive stuff. But anyway, yeah, so those are the skills, and those are the good ones. Now as for the moves, moves are only used by cats. So dogs don't get moves. Dogs, you can equip them different skills. You can pick and choose them. For cats, they are predetermined when you generate the cat. How it works is that you have up to 5 skills. Well, you have exactly 5 skills. So the one you learn at level 1 and the one you learn at level 20 is going to be fixed depending on the Palico type. So all of these are Gathering Cats, which means they all get Endemic Life Barrage at level 1 and Pilfer at level 20. You can see that here. Level 1, level 20, level 1, level 20 are always the same. As for the other levels, you can learn one of 5 different moves. So for the level 5, you can get a skill like Go Fight Win or Zap Blast, Spinner, and so on. There are 5 possible options. Same at level 10 and level 15. So basically, some are really, really good and some are not. For level 1, Rousing Roar is a really good one. That's from Fight Cats. And Rousing Roar increases your affinity by 30% for about 2-3 minutes, I believe. And this can be really, really good. This can let you do more damage, especially if you don't hit 100% affinity with your weapon. Endemic Life Barrage, which you get from Gathering Cats, are really nice because it can put more statuses on the enemy. So more statuses means more openings, which means more damage. Go Fight Win is another good one. Basically, it reduces your hunter's stamina loss, so you aren't going to use stamina. For weapons like the bow, which use stamina on attacks a lot, this can be very, very good. For other weapons like the longsword, I guess what you can do is you can use skills like Maximum Might more reliably, because you aren't going to lose stamina, so it can help you do damage that way. I like Healing Bubble. Healing Bubble lets you heal yourself. Power Drum increases your attack damage. Summon Endemic Life is another status one. And I really like Shock Prison and Poison Prison, which plays a Shock Trap and a Poison Trap respectively, which are really, really good for openings. As well as Pilfer, which gets you free stuff if you are a Gathering Cat. Basically, a lot of these are really, really good. So it becomes really important to figure out like how you actually get these good skills. So, what does it actually mean? Basically, what Kieran found out the other day is that not every skill or every move is equally likely. As we said, Health Up Small is more common than Medic's Touch. Something like Health Up Small is also more common than Health Up Large. This generally is related to how good the skill is, so more common skills are generally a bit worse. But also it depends on what type of cat you have. They're usually related to the type of cats. So Medic cats are more likely to get Medic's Touch. Sorry, Healer cats are more likely to get Medic's Touch, whereas Gatherer cats are not. So this is actually really, really interesting and really, really cool. Basically, it means that stuff like Fighter cats are more likely to get Attack Up Small because they're designed to keep attacking monsters. This is really, really cool and really interesting because, yeah, this seems to make intuitive sense, but like no one found this out before. And yeah, so it's really, really nice to know. But this does mean, of course, that oftentimes, depending on what we want, we might not get the moves or skills very, very commonly. Similar things occur for the moves. So if you look at the moves, as we said, they are fixed to have a particular level 1 and level 20 skill. For the 5, 10, and 15 skills, each type also has a particular skill that's more common, which is really, really cool. So I don't quite remember what it is for Gathering Cats, but basically, yeah. So I know that for Assist Cats, which get Poison Prison, at level 15, they're more likely to get Shock Prison. So they get both the trap skills very, very commonly. As for the Palamutes, so Palamutes don't have a type. Instead, their skill variety matches the skill variety of the Fight Cats. In other words, they're more likely to get skills like Attack Up and less likely to get skills like Medic's Touch, even if this one has Medic's Touch. So yeah, and this means that, again, depending on what we want, it might be more or less likely, depending on what cat type we get. So, to figure out how common exactly the different skill types are, I thought it'd be really interesting and really cool to actually show you how the calculation works. So I created a spreadsheet that actually does it for us, but I thought it'd be really interesting for people who are interested just to see how we actually do the calculations, how it works, because the spreadsheet I made is not perfect. It's quite slow, and it isn't even perfectly correct at times. It actually can't be perfectly correct. And I want to talk about basically why that is, just so you have a good understanding of where these numbers come from. And I'm quite excited to do this. So basically, if you don't know, probability is actually fundamentally very, very simple. There are just 2 rules you need to know, and everything we do is based upon those 2 rules. Rule 1. The probability of the event is the number of ways something could happen divided by all possible things that could happen. So if I flip a coin, I don't have a coin with me right now, but if I flip a coin, it could be either heads or it could be tails. So there are 2 possible events, that's a 2 over there, and there's one way of getting a heads. It can either be a heads or it won't be a heads. One way you can have a heads. So the overall chance is 1 way you can get a heads, and there are 2 over 2. So 2 things that could possibly happen. 1 divided by 2 is 50%, so you get a 50% chance of getting a head. For something slightly more common, The chance of getting a 2 or lower, so the chance of getting a 1 or a 2 on rolling a 6-sided dice. So there are 6 possible numbers that could appear, so we divide by 6, and there are 2 ways we can get a number 2 or lower. We can get a 1 or we can get a 2. So get 2 divided by 6, or 16.7%. That is rule 1 for probability. And rule number 2 is the probability of 2 events happening at the same time are the multiple or the product of those 2 depends. If they're, or those 2 events if they are different, if they're independent. So if we flip a coin and then roll a dice, the chances of getting ahead and getting a number 2 or lower on the dice is just what happens if we multiply those 2 numbers together. So 18% times 16.7%, we get 8%. Now, that is all we need to do the calculator. Sort of. It gets really complicated, but if we turn this back to our cats and our dogs, basically it works the same way. So let's say we really want that really good skill, status attack up. So the chance of getting status attack up, let's say that we're only going to pick one skill. The chance of our first skill being status attack up, assuming they're all evenly distributed, there is one way you can get status attack up. We get status attack up, and there are 23 possible skills in the game. So the chance of getting status attack up is 1 divided by 23, or 4.3%. Now let's say we like to steal a shock prison. So, like we said, for each individual move, for each move slot, there are 5 different options we can get. The chance of getting shock prison would be 1, we can get shock prison, divided by 5. There are 5 possible skills, so we get 20%. That was rule 1. And rule number 2, the chance of both happening is just multiply them both together. 4.3% times 20% is 0.87%. So we have a 0.87% chance of the first skill being status attack up and us getting shock prison on our last slot, assuming all probabilities are the same. Which we don't know, which we didn't know, but now we know that is not true. But basically, that is a simple probability, and everything we do is built off of that. So, what happens when we want more than one skill? Let's say we want 3 skills that are very good. Let's say we want status attack up for more status effects. We want artful dodger, which makes a cat more likely to survive. And we want knockout king, which gives them higher knock chance. Let's also say we just have 3 slots. We want status attack, artful dodger, and knockout king in the first 3 slots. Now, for the first skill, for the chance of getting status attack up, which I've just abbreviated to S, so P brackets S means the probability of getting status attack up is, like we saw before, just going to be 1 divided by 23. We have 1 possible skill out of 23. Now, after that, we want the skill Artful Dodger. Right now, there's 1 making an Artful Dodger, so 1. And instead of there being 23 different skills, there are only 22 different skills now. Because status attack up is no longer in the possible skills we can get. We can't get status attack up twice. So we go from 23 to 22. So we get 1 over 23, and we get 1 over 22 chance of getting Artful Dodger. Now to get the third skill we want, Knockout King, it's the exact same way. We decrease that number by 1 to be 1 on 21. So the chance of getting us status attack up, then getting Artful Dodger, then getting Knockout King is probability of status attack up times probability of Artful Dodger times the probability of Knockout King, all multiplied together. So 1 divided by 23 times 1 divided by 22 times 1 divided by 21. Multiply them all together, we get, basically we can put all the denominators together. So 23 times 22 times 21 on the bottom. And if we want to be very fancy, we can use this exclamation mark, which is a mathematical symbol that means 1, it's very exciting, but 2, we're just multiplying it by every number smaller than it. So 4 factorial is just 4 times 3 times 2 times 1. We go all the way down to 1, and that's our answer. So 4 factorial is 24. So we can write this as 20 factorial divided by 23 factorial, 23 factorial being 23 times 22 times 21 times 20 times 19, blah, 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 all down to 1. And on the top, we'll get 20 times 19 times 18, blah, 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 blah. And everything under 20 gets removed because they're the same on top and bottom, if you know your fractions. So this means we can just write the probability of getting S, then A, then K is 20 factorial divided by 23 factorial. The really cool thing about factorials is that they are basically the answer to the question, how many ways can we arrange 4 things? Or that would be put 4 factorial. So if we have like 4 different balls, this is saying we can arrange it 24 different ways. Basically because we can put any of the first 4 down, then we have 3 options we can put down, there are 2 options we can put down, then we have no other options. It's the exact same way that we did the previous thing, where we're going to select 1 fewer every single time. First we have 23 options, then 22 options, then 21 options. In fact, if we were going to select all 23 skills, there would be 1 divided by 23 factorial. So 23 times 22 times 21, all the way back down 2 times 1. This is going to be important. Basically, yes, factorial just means how many ways can we arrange so-and-so things, and just that number times every number smaller than it. Cool. Okay, so this means this number, 20 factorial on 23 factorial, is the probability of getting status attack, then artful dodger, then knockout king. But if we just want those 3 skills, we don't really care about the order. Like if we get artful dodger first, then status attack, then knockout king, it's the same thing. We aren't really going to care so much. So basically this means that we're going to add all those options together. So the probability of status attack, then artful dodger, then knockout king, plus the chance of status attack, knockout king, then artful dodger, plus the chance of artful dodger, status attack, and knockout king, and so on and so forth. We write that with these curly brackets. Basically, this curly brackets just means all possible ways we can arrange those 3 things. And if you remember, we said the way you can arrange some amount of things is just that number factorial. So the chance of getting all possible arrangements of these 3 skills is the chance of getting 1 skill times 3, because we have 3 skills, factorial. So 3 factorial times 20 factorial divided by 23 factorial is this number. So we get a 0.0564% chance of getting those 3 skills if we have 3 skill slots. If you did this sort of stuff in high school, this might look a bit familiar to you. You can write this as 1 divided by 23C3. If you don't know this stuff, don't worry about it. That's just like a fancy way of writing it. But yeah, this is how probabilities are normally calculated. Start from very simple steps, and we get to this mess. But really, it's just this. It's just this equation. Really, really easy. So, this is what happens if every skill is equally the same. What if? But there are a few issues, as we said. Well, we first of all said that the chances aren't uniform. That's what Kieran found out. So how do we calculate the chances? This works for all, this works if they're all equal. But if they're not equal, which they aren't, the math gets a bit more complicated. The second thing is, the thing that's good is that we actually don't pick 3 skills. We pick 8 skills. So we actually have more chances than we want. So the chances should be higher than 0.0564%. But how much higher? How do we find that out? How do we calculate that? So these 2 problems are stuff that I had to find out when making the calculator, and I sort of have answers for both. Let's do this first one. What happens if we have more skills we can pick than we want? And I don't know how it happened. I don't know how I did it, but somehow, some way, on like this bunch of like pristine sheets of paper, I have an equation. I tried different numbers. I used like my absolute best math intuition, and somehow, some way, the equation that calculates the probability is this. I feel like I should be annoyed. I don't know why. But I'm not a mathematician, I'm a physicist. So if something works, and it works in every situation, I don't care. This equation works. This equation accurately describes the probability of getting what we want. I tried figuring out how it worked. I couldn't. I spent like an entire day and I had no clue what was going on. I think I have some intuition. Basically, it seems to be related to basically, I think we're just multiplying. We have another C factor somewhere. If you know math, please, and you figure out, and you know what this equation is? Like, I think it could be written another way. Please let me know in the comments. I don't know how it works, but it works. The probability of getting W skills you want when you pick R skills out of N possible skills is this. Now, what does this mean for our cats? Basically, N equals 23. We have 23 possible skills. Let's say we just want 3 skills: status attack, artful dodger, knockout king, and we have 8 slots. Put those numbers in, we get 3.16%. We get 3.16% chance of getting those 3 skills. We're done. We're good. Don't think about why it works. It just works. And this is much higher than the 0.0564% chance we got of having all 3 slots, which is quite nice. So we're much, much more likely because we have so many slots. And I think that's really nice by Capcom. 0.0564% is really, really low. That's like 1 in, what, 2,000? Of course, this is like 1 in 30. Very, 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 very different. This is very bearable. But again, they aren't uniform. So what do you do about the non-uniformity? Let's go down. What do we do if one skill is more or less likely than the others? So let's start. Let's say that status attack up, the one we really want, is more likely than the others. So before we said 1 divided by 0.3 because we had 23 possible skills. Then we remove 1, so 22. Then we remove 1, so we say 21. Now, if status attack is more common, the chances of getting that are higher at first. We actually have 2 ways we can get status attack because we are twice as likely. We have an overall double chance of getting it compared to everything else. But because we have that extra chance of it appearing, the bottom also increases as well. Basically, we can say, instead of saying we have status attack there once, we can say we have status attack there twice. So we have 2 ways of getting status attack, but now instead of 23 skills, we get 24 skills. When status attack is picked, we're going to take out both of the skills. So we minus 2 instead of minus 1, so from 24 to 22. This means that instead of having 1 divided by 23 times 22 times 21, we get 2 divided by 24 times 22 times 21. These two equations are very, very different. And what's annoying is the pattern is no longer the same. We no longer get the number that's decreasing every single time. So we can't use the same trick with the factorial, with the exclamation mark. And that's not the worst part. The worst part is that the orders are now different. So, before in the uniform case, the chances were all the same. For getting artful dodger first, before status attack, because they're all equal, they're all the same. 1 over 23, 1 over 22, 1 over 21. If they're weighted, it's different. Instead of 1 over 23, we have the same chance of getting artful dodger. Status attack is still the higher one. So we have 1 divided by 24 times, then we have this, we have a status attack picked. 2 ways of getting status attack divided by 23, and then we minus 2. 1 divided by 21. So instead of before, where we had 2 over 24 times 2 over 22 times 2 over 21, now we have 2 over 24 times 2 over 23 times 2 over 21. And this is the case for all 6 variations. So for the uniform, all 6 ways of arranging the 3 skills are exactly the same. So we multiply it by 3 factorial. For this, each of these numbers have no reason to be the same. So we need to calculate all 6 of these, one at a time, and then add them together. And each one is more complicated because we can't use the exclamation mark. Basically, there is no way to simplify it. For the uniform case, you can simplify it with the exclamation marks. Here you can't. You can't simplify it, but we can describe it with this equation. I found this on Stack Exchange. I'll link the thread in the comments. But basically, this means this equation is complicated, but it just means we're going to, this weird Z-looking thing means we're adding things together. So we're going to add each way of ordering the skills. So if we have 3 factorial ways of arranging the skills, we're going to add 6 different things together. This thing that looks like a door, it's called, it's just the capital pi, means we multiply things together. Basically, we're multiplying by the chance of each individual skill, each skill slot. And here, this is a formula that basically describes the percent chance of each skill. It's a very complicated formula, but basically the takeaway is that we're having this number, we're multiplying a whole bunch of different numbers together, and then we're adding all those different numbers together. And we're adding a lot of numbers together. So in the case where we have 3 stills and 3 slots, we can just use this formula. And the chance of getting those 3 stills with the actual numbers that we have in game, if we only have 3 slots, is 0.1056%, which is quite nice. It's actually twice as likely as the case where they're uniformly distributed. If we don't have an SS cat, if we have any other cat or a dog, the chance is actually lower by 0.0 to 0.04%. And that's really, really interesting. So that means if you just want those 3 skills and you don't care about moves, you can actually pick an assist cat and you're like over twice as likely to get those 3 skills you want, which I think is really, really cool. So that's with if there are 3 skills. If we have 8 skills, which we do, we can pick it from 8 different slots. This gets very, very, very slow. Because remember, this Z thing, this sigma, is an addition for how many different ways we can arrange our thing. We can arrange our stills. And with 8 different stills we can pick from, we can arrange them 8 factorial different ways, which is 8 times 7 times 6 times 5 times 4 times 3 times 2 times 1, which is 40,320. So we have 40,320 numbers that we're adding together. And each of these 40,320 numbers are made of 8 numbers that are multiplied together. This is a lot of numbers, and if I make a public calculator, like with Excel, it works. It just takes a few seconds. It is much slower than you might expect if you've ever used Excel before. There are faster tools that we can use, like if I want to, we could program this in Python or another programming language, and it'll be much faster than Google Sheets. But I wouldn't be able to conveniently hand you my Python code, but I can hand you an Excel spreadsheet or a Google Sheets spreadsheet. So that's what sort of constraint you have to make when you're making things for different people. But this is fine. It'll just take a few seconds, which is fine. So we've sort of solved our 2 problems. The first problem with the 3 slots we've solved with our weird equation. And the second formula, the second issue, with the weighted distributions, we can sort of solve, but we need like 100,000 calculations, so it's pretty slow. But it's doable. Like, at least it works, so I can't really complain. Now, how do we combine our 2 solutions together? Because the first solution works nicely, uses the exclamation marks for factorials because it assumes that all the chances are equal. If they aren't equal, we can't do that. We can't use the equation that I somehow made up. We need to like actually manually check it, like we manually checked all 8 factorial still slots. But if we're looking at every possible skill, we aren't looking at 8 factorial, we aren't looking at the amount of slots, we're looking at the amount of skills, which is 23 factorial. And 23 factorial is a very, very, very big number. I think I have it later, but like, yeah, this is it just wouldn't work. I couldn't think of any way I could put these 2 solutions together nicely. And I was like, damn, I don't know what to do. I basically wasted like an entire day doing this. So eventually I did what I always do when I have trouble like with some sort of like a math calculation thing, which is I asked like one of my bosses for help. So I asked, I'm like, blah, 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 how would you solve this problem? And I guess his response was, but why do this problem? Is there a real world application behind it? Anyway, so as far as I understand, there is no way to simplify this problem. I asked for help properly, and like, yeah, it just seems like you have to manually calculate all 23 factorial solutions. That's one solution. So we do the 25, I don't even know what this number is, million, billion, trillion, quadrillion, quintillion, hextillion, 25 hextillion, 852 quintillion, 16 quadrillion, 738, I lost trillion, 885 billion calculations. Multiplied by a few more numbers. Which Excel can't do, like Excel would just explode. The other thing is that we start being physicists, and we make assumptions, we make simplifications. We aren't able to do the full calculation, but we can find some smart ways of making the problem simpler. So the best way I can think of to do this is to assume all non-wanted skills get an equal distribution. So let's say we want those 3 skills: status attack, artful dodger, knockout king. It's very important we have those chances accurate, to have those chances as they are in the game, or else we aren't doing anything. Now, let's say we have 5 other skills that we are going to have of those 23. The reason we might have to do all 23 factorial solutions is if we're going to look at every single one of those 5 skills accurately and correctly model with their probability. We can't do that. So instead, what we can do is we can assume that all those 5, in fact, all of those other 5 plus whatever skills we aren't picking. So we have 23 skills, we care about 3. We're going to assume that all 20 other skills are going to be equally likely. That way we don't need to change the formula if we pick another skill. We just, no matter what 20, it's equally going to be the same. And that works. That seems to work decently well, I would hope. But at this point, we don't know. So that's solution number 2. Solution number 3 is we could give up, or we can try something completely different, which is a nicer way of saying we give up. But this is also important. So instead of just using math to calculate the chances of things happening, we can get a computer to actually do it. We're going to run simulations. We're going to tell the computer we have 23 skills with these chances. Pick 8. We want how frequently do we get these 3 that we want? We can just get the computer to do that, figure out how often we get those 3 skills if we do it like a bunch of times, and use that. Again, this is something that I can do on my computer, but is much harder to do for you. Like, it'll be much harder to give you the simulation. I could give you the results of the simulation, but if you want different skills, you could need to rerun the simulation, which would be very rough. So, we aren't going to do 1. One can't be done, but we can do 2 and 3. In fact, we can use 3 to test 2, because if 2 and 3 are the same, if 2 and 3 match one another, then 2 is probably right, and that means 2 is fine. I can use 2. And that's what I did. So, finally, we have our solution. We used the calculator, we did our 8 factorial solutions, and we did our simplification by assuming an equal probability of all skills we don't want. And this is what we have. So when we calculated the probability, the chance of getting all 3 skills, if they're uniformly distributed, is 3.16%. When we simulated it, we got 3.17%. Same deal, that matches. This was just done with my mystery equation, so the mystery equation works. Now, this is stuff that's interesting with the simplification. So, with the calculator, we have a 2.44% chance of getting those skills on a gather cat. With a simulator, we get 2.64%. So the calculator is slightly wrong. It's about 12.2% off. Thereabouts. Slightly off. But it's still very good. 2.44 is much closer to 2.64 than it is to 3.17. So the calculator seems to work decently well. For syscats, when calculated, we get 5.18%. When simulated, we get 5.59%. Basically, the calculator works decently well. It's not perfect. As you can see, we're about 10% too low in these, like 10% of the number too low. But it's still pretty good, and it works. The fully accurate way of calculating it just wouldn't work in Excel. Wouldn't work in Excel. So, yeah, I'm happy. I'm happy with this. So, let's actually do it. So I have my sheet here. Sweet. You can see my sheet here on screen right now. And let's actually use it. So let's say we want a Palamute with Artful Dodger, Knockout King, and Earplugs. What do you want to do? You want to make the body type a Palamute So the support moves don't do anything. And excuse me. So it's going to take a while to load, as you can see here. This green bar is just telling us it's loading. But eventually, what we should see once it finishes loading is that the chances of getting everything we want should just be 100%, because we haven't picked any skills and the support moves don't matter for the dog. So once this finishes loading, we should have a 100% chance of getting a Palamute with any skill you want. NA just means we don't care about the skill or the move. So once this loads, I want to let this roll in full just so we can prove to you it works. And so you have an idea of how slow it is. So the chance per body with no skills at all is 100%. Calculator works. But let's put those 3 skills we want. So we said Artful Dodger, Knockout King, Earplugs. So like we said, Artful Dodger is quite nice because it gives the, in this case, dog, higher chance of surviving. Next one we wanted was, what was it? Knockout King. Which is nice for dogs because dogs have a lot of attacks that can stun the enemy. Last we wanted was Earplugs, just so we have something that can wake us up. And also because I believe this adds up to 5, so Knockout King is only 1 slot. Artful Dodger is 2, so we have space for Earplugs, which is a 2, but we don't have enough space for status attack. So once this loads, eventually we should see. But yeah, I think this is quite interesting just to have a good idea of how these things happen. As you can see, we did actually just base ourselves on those 2 simple rules, the probability of event and the probability of multiple events. And from that, we just multiplied those things together, and we got what we wanted, which is really, really nice. A lot of it is intuition you develop over time and experience. Like, this is my job in a way, so I've developed experience in calculating stuff. But if you just keep working on this is something that you can learn to do as well over time. Yeah, job or hobby, as you wish. But yeah, so this is already very slow. But it is, I don't know, billion times faster than the explicit case. Okay, I'll let this run one fully roll, and then we'll do the other one at full speed. I'll just cut through when you do the other one. But yeah. So how was your day? Oh, it's fun. Okay, yeah. So with those 3 skills, we have a 25.42% chance of it happening. Yeah, and we have 5 slots worth of skills. It's still loading. Nice. The numbers might change, so we'll have to wait until it finishes loading fully. But so that's what this number says here: 25.42% chance of getting a body. We actually pull 7 bodies at once. Whenever you go to the dude Iori, there are 7 possible bodies he has. So the chance of it getting after every quest is 87.17%. Actually, what this does mean is if I check the thing is right now, chances are I'll have a dog with all 3. Oh, go figure. This is saying that if you want a 50% chance of getting a dog with the skill you want, it'll take 1 quest. It'll take 2 quests for a 95% chance. Actually, while it's loading, I can just quickly show you that and test it, I guess. Let's hide this. So we said Artful Dodger. Artful Dodger, Knockout King, and the other one. No Artful Dodger, no Artful Dodger. There's Artful Dodger, Knockout King, and the last one we wanted was Earplugs. We got 2 out of 3. Yeah. So it's not super likely, but yeah. Unless it just didn't properly calculate. Artful Dodger, no Knockout King. But yeah. Oh, no, sorry, I miscalculated. 2.44%. It was still thinking. Sorry about that. But yeah, so every quest we have a 15.88% chance of getting the skill we want. 50% chance after 5 quests and 95% chance after 18 quests. After 18 quests, we can do this. I can reroll cats quickly by just dying to a Rajang if you go to the arena. But yeah, so that's number 1. Let's check number 2 cat. Okay, so for the other option we talked about, with Artful Dodger, Status Attack Up, Go Fight Win, Power Drum, and Shock Prison, It's calculated, and it looks like we have a 0.42% chance of getting a body that we want. So this, this cat would be a cat that I might actually use because, you have both traps. So you have a lot of status attacks. We have Go Fight Wit and Power Drum to increase our damage, and we have really good skills. What I think are the two best skills, Artful Dodger and Status Attack Up. So yeah, and basically it's saying that every quest we have about a 3% chance of getting this perfect cat, in quotation marks. 50% chance after 24 quests, and 95% chance after 103 quests. So after 103 quests, we should probably get the cat we want. This is just for this cat, and while I wouldn't say this cat is, perfect, this is a cat that I might use. We could use a fight cat for Rousing Roar, or you might want to use a Gathering cat for Pilfer and stuff like that. It's up to you. Check again at the beginning for suggestions. Actually, while I was preparing this video, I saw a good Reddit thread about cat skills, and I'll link that in the description, actually. But yeah, I think that's basically it for the calculator. So let's hide that, and let's go towards our conclusions. So yeah, basically in summary, what we've learned today is that different body types have different skill and move probabilities. It's not the same, and depends on the type of body. We also learned that the probability of event is the amount of ways an event could happen divided by all possible things that could happen. And finally, we learned that the probability of two events happening is just the chances of both events happening multiplied together. And from these three facts together, we made a spreadsheet to estimate the skill and probabilities. It's not perfect, it's a bit slow, but it works. And sometimes that's all we can really do. Anyway, with that all, thank you all so much for watching. I'll put links in the description for a bunch of things, including Kieran's video where he found this stuff out. And yeah, so next video should be Rune Factory, and then I'll do another Monster Hunter video. This time about a sort of philosophical. Yeah, maybe that's not the right thing. A more meta perspective on set building, and sort of also tackling all the questions I had about the video that I posted earlier. And with that all, yeah, again, thank you all for watching, and I'll see you all next time. Bye.